Breathe. Everybody breathe. You got to breathe even with a mask on. Ah, yes. I'm actually getting high breathing my own carbon dioxide. Does everybody have their mask on? Because I want to make sure that we don't get each other sick. They say we're going to be wearing masks for years and years and years. This could be the future, folks. This is the way. This is a mask of. I gotta take this off. There we go. So mask my wife made. Look at that, all with one string. Julianne, good job, keeping me healthy. I wear it in the supermarkets to make sure I don't get anybody sick. I don't get myself sick. Everybody's staying healthy, and you have to. What else can we do? Welcome, everybody, to 420 Live with Jeff Kravitz. It's great to see you guys today. I come to you every day at 410 to entertain you through the hour, 420, and I've been doing this for a month. This is week number 5, show 2. We are celebrating cannabis all week long. I mean, I celebrate it all year, every year, all day long. So this is nothing new for me. It's always a cannabis celebration in my house and in my life. And most of my friends are the kind of people that celebrate cannabis too, because it's what we all do. We all like to get cerebral, get in our heads, connect with each other. And cannabis is something that helps us do that. So yesterday we talked to Mark Chaldone and Chewy Smith from Also Organics. Chewy wanted me to tell you guys that you get a 20% code, Kravitz 420, for Also Organics. If you want to stop by there and pick up some stuff, some CBDs for you. I did the tincture today under my tongue, and I'll tell you what, I felt that stuff. I was like, whoa, I've never really, felt it before. And I was like, wow, that CBD stuff works. I was like, so now we'll get home. I'll chew some gummies a little bit later. Anyway, we had Chewy and Mark on yesterday talking CBD. Mark, he's a chemist, so a lot of that stuff might have gone over your head. But if you go back and listen to it and listen how important the endocannabinoid system is to your well-being and why cannabis is such a great option for you, you'll find out what it's all about. Today, I know I'm competing with Fish. Fish is one of my favorite bands, and right now they're on live. You could turn the channel over there but I saw that show, and let me tell you, the heat is all in the second set, towards the end of the second set. The Tweezer, Magnaball, the Tweezer and the Caspian are the two things I took away from that show. I had a great time. I love the Fish festivals. The last time I tried to have a festival, I landed in Newark, New Jersey. It was called Curveball, and I got curveballed, and there was no festival. There was nothing going on. So that's what it is. You get what you get. You don't get upset. Speaking of cancellations, I got some really bad news today, and that is that every concert in New Orleans for the year of 2020 is now canceled. So that means the Jazz Fest dates that we had for October, the French Quarter Festival was also moved, and the Essence Festival, anything else that was going to be moved to New Orleans is now canceled for the year 2020. And this is the first place to cancel music for the whole thing. And you guys, this is a shot right through the heart, right through the heart of America. New Orleans is the heart of America. It keeps our beat. It keeps us on our feet. It keeps us dancing, engaged, and it's incredibly sad that there's not going to be any kind of huge events in New Orleans. But the city is going to come back. You're probably still going to be able to go to the clubs and the restaurants, hopefully soon. I'm hoping we get to some kind of normalcy. Otherwise, there's going to be some kind of underground market for all this stuff. So sad news out of New Orleans today. But I digress. That is not why we're here. I am your distraction. I am here to take you away from the minutiae, from the stuff that's just taking us apart, from, taking us, blowing us apart, tearing us apart, but putting us together and making us stay home with our family. And a lot of people out there are alone. A lot of people are there with their pets. But you just have to take care of each other and know that we're going to make it through this storm. There we go. There's my intro. I am going to shoot to my guests. I'm a lucky guy, as you know, and I've touched many different lives, and many different lives have touched me over the years. And A friend of mine, Shirley Halperin, she's a writer out here in Hollywood covering the scene. And she wrote this book, Pot Culture, with a legend in the cannabis. One of probably the first name I remember seeing on a magazine, a stoner magazine when I was a kid, was the name Steve Bloom. He was associated with High Times magazine for years, for decades. And, I used to read High Times magazine like somebody would read Playboy. You'd open up that centerfold and you'd be like, whoa, look at that. It'd be some fat bud on there that you've never seen before because you were getting swag weed in New Jersey. And it was a way to communicate what was happening around the world, even with the pricing around the world and hearing about how people smoked and knowing that you wanted to go to Amsterdam and made Amsterdam the key of cannabis tourism back in the day. And basically Shirley and Steve wrote this book, Pop Culture, came out in 2007. And when I read this book, it had every secret that I had ever learned from decades and decades of my own research, figuring out shit on my own in one place. And I was like, oh my God, if my kids, and I had young kids, 2007, I had an 8-year-old, I had a 10-year-old. I was like, wow, if the kids ever get a hold of this, they're going to cut out all that learning I had to do. And sure enough, when my son turned 16, found this in his room. I guess it's the equivalent of finding a Playboy back in the day. And, I was like, oh shit, the cat's out of the bag. Oh my God, I'm ruined. But the book's incredible. And not just because it talks about the magazines and the culture, but literally gets into the crazy stuff on how to score a bag and how to make a pipe out of anything. And they have celebrities doing stuff too. Like RZA teaches you how to roll, or no, Redmond teaches you how to roll blunt. And you make an apple bowl with Jonah Hill. And then stuff like this, the stoner etiquette. Like how to act as a stoner. This is stuff you learned by getting yelled at. This was stuff that you learned because someone would be like, hey, moron, that's not what you do. You pull the seeds and stems out before you roll a joint. What's wrong with you? Anyway, I'm going to bring in Steve. We're going to talk to him for a couple minutes and catch up with him. And then we're going to talk to Shirley together. And I'm going to introduce Steve Bloom. Steve looks like he's keeping his social distance there. Hi, Steve. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me turn your mic on. Sorry. There you are. Go ahead. Give it to me again.
So here I am, New York, where it's all happening, the epicenter of the pandemic. I'm in 31 days.
31 days you've been inside?
Yep.
Oh, all your food delivered, everything?
I shop and I cook for myself.
Oh, so you've been going to the markets?
Every 5 days.
How's the situation in the markets? Because New York's not known for having the biggest supermarkets in the world.
Whole Foods is great, but I had a real shit fit in my neighborhood last week when they weren't social distancing. And I called the assemblyman. I called 311. I heard they made some changes, but I won't go back there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised they haven't done things like one weighing in the aisles and stuff like that. But
Whole Foods is great. I mean, they separate. They go one at a time in and out. They recommend that. At least around here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a completely different game out here than there. We don't have that kind of concentration that you have in New York City, but our best are with all you guys. I mean, we think about it every day, and it's a little bit too much after you read the paper and read the news. You're just like, okay, let's check out. So you left High Times in 2007. How many years were you there?
I started in 1988.
Incredible times, and incredible times in the industry where you guys were kind of a pariah. I guess you were like I keep referring you guys to the Playboy magazine, but I think that the parallels are really accurate because you guys were also a pariah as Hugh Hefner was in the beginning, where people were like, oh,
Yeah, there's definitely a connection. I mean, I look at, Playboy was the 50s, Rolling Stone was the 60s, and High Times was the 70s.
For sure. And golden years. I mean, to get that kind of information back in those days. I mean, it's really hard for people to understand now because information travels so freely on Googling anything you want to know about any kind of strain or anything you've heard. And in those days, it was all word of mouth and by High Times, really. It was the only thing that really kept us in touch.
It was hard to find, too. I remember going to stores, even to this day, it's always still hard to find a weed magazine at a Barnes & Noble, like it's buried somewhere behind the tattoo magazines or something.
So what I'm seeing with some of these old brands is really having a hard time making the transition into the new world.
You mean like High Times?
Yeah, like High Times is having a hard time making the transition in the new world, and they're not the only one. There's always some legendary people that are going to get left in the dust because of the way this technology and news travels. And if you didn't stay up on it, you know, you have to create a web presence more than even a magazine these days. Go ahead.
I mean, the whole industry back then was just growers, you know, besides, you know, a little bit of media like High Times. So most of the growers, you know, they weren't businessmen or people, you know, so they, you know, they are not cut out for, you know, jumping into this business unless, you know, they put together a team and they figured it out.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But you're working on 2 magazines now.
Yeah, I moved around since I left High Times. It took a while to get another job. Leaving High Times in 2007, pre-legalization, there was like nothing out there, and so I started Celeb Stoner, the website, and I still have my website, celebstoner.com, and I got a job in 2014 with a magazine called Freedom Leaf, and I did that for 5 years, and that ended last year. The company had a merger, and they kind of bailed on their media side of the company, went into CBD products. And but luckily, I guess, you know, now there is more opportunity and there are more magazines. And I found a company called Centennial Media. Actually, they found me, and they needed some editorial help. And I've taken over editing their couple of magazines I have. One is called Marijuana Goes Mainstream, and the other one is called The Complete Guide to CBD. I'm working on another issue of CBD right now, learning a lot about that, eating some CBD gummies because we didn't even acknowledge 420.
Yes.
Gummy for you.
There it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find yourself chewing mostly edibles? Do you still consume THC?
All the time. But, you know, I'm taking a little break right now because I've been kind of recommended doctors. I have a friend who's a cannabis doctor, and her recommendations are kind of stay away from smoking right now and vaping and pretty much eat, you know, just keep your lungs really clear. Don't, you know, I mean, right now here in New York, if you get a little scratch in your throat, you freak out. You think, oh, my God. So you smoke, you're going to get a scratch in your throat. So I'm taking a break. I'm actually experimenting for the first time with CBD and see how it works.
So I talked to my friend Chewy yesterday about CBD and tried a CBD gummy. Are you feeling them? Do you feel?
I think CBD is a very subtle effect, but I would say 20 days in, you know, I thought, you know, 20 days, I feel great. Oh, wow, 20 days, so big deal. All of a sudden, I kind of hit a wall. I wasn't sleeping right for a couple of days, and I was a little anxious, not ridiculous, but a little mildly anxious. I figured, well, here CBD is good for anxiety. Might as well give it a shot. And some companies have sent me some of their products, and so I've been taking tinctures and gummies, and it settled me down.
Oh, good. I mean, that's what you hear about it, that it settles it down and it's good for inflammation. And
it's very subtle. You don't even know, but it does.
Yeah. And how long has it been since you stopped smoking now?
I've taken a little break for about a week.
You're dreaming a lot?
I usually do, but not right now. For some weird reason, I think the CBD is keeping, you know, the dreams back. You know, when I do take a break, as you asked, which is rare, but when you do, you have a flood of dreams because it's kind of like the veil is lifted. But now, you know, with the CBD, so I still have some cannabinoids in my system, so it's not, you know, it's not opening up the dreams like it would if you just totally stop any cannabinoids altogether.
What do you think? I mean, did you ever see this coming? This whole revolution in legalization, and did you think it would happen in your life?
Well, we worked really hard at High Times for it. You know, now that it's happened, you say, you know, be careful what you wish for, because, you know, some of the things that have happened are not that great. The high tax rates, you know, freezing out, you know, people who created the industry, you know, at least as activists. I mean, look at the scene up in Vancouver. They had such great stores up there with dab bars, cannabis culture, and they shut it all down. Why? You know, because the government had to take it all over. You know, that's not the way it should be. And they're incensed up there still. They call it fake legalization up in Canada. Well,
yeah, it comes with a lot of restrictions. Anything, just like alcohol too, right? There's a lot of restrictions on alcohol. A lot of restrictions on weed.
The weed is highly. I mean, I interviewed Be Real today. Be Real from Cypress Hill, an article for Variety, and he said the taxation is about 50%. He's in the business. He has his Dr. Green's stores. 50%. That'll
in California, right?
In California, that'll stop at some point. But I mean, it's so greedy of the states to go in there and charge such high tax rates. They're like doing us a favor to make marijuana legal or something. So we're going to charge you a lot.
And they also think that people are going to step right up. I mean, I've been smoking weed for decades. I'm not about to spend $70 on an eighth of pot. I'm sorry. And
I haven't had that much experience with legal stores because we're in New York. We don't have legal marijuana. We have medical, and it's very restricted, so you can't get it like you used to be able to get in California. I did go up to Massachusetts when the door opened there, and I thought it was great. I thought the weed was awesome, and I thought the pricing was pretty good. So it can happen, and look how the prices fell through the roof, or fell through the bottom, sorry, in Oregon and Colorado in the last few years. So California, ultimately that'll happen in California. It's just going to, they set it up in a way where it's not going to happen for a while.
Well, I just think that the government's trying to rape us because they're coming in so strong with all these kinds of limitations and taxes. And you're like, what, you're going to charge me 30% and then another tax on top of that and another tax on top of that, federal excise tax? I mean, it's ridiculous.
In a way, they're just kind of giving a bad name to legalization, but it's out of our hands now. This is what we wanted, and then the government takes it over, and this is what it becomes.
Well, thank God a lot of my friends haven't gone out of business that I used to score from back in the day.
The black market is strong in New York. Everybody's all worried about the quality of the weed. Oh, it's not tested. Come on, we've been smoking weed untested forever, and we're okay.
I'm a guinea pig. I test it. I'm the tester. I can see my nose.
But my concerns is the vaping. I'm very happy to stop vaping. I haven't touched a vape since people started dying from it. And I always thought vaping was a scam. And by the way, our friend Shirley Halperin is going to join us in a few minutes. She's the one who kind of told me, not interested. I remember for a while, it was the trend. Everybody was, the vape pens, and then Shirley came to New York for a visit and I had a vape pen. She said, nah. I said, really? You're not into it anymore? No, it doesn't do anything for me. And in reality, it doesn't do anything for me either. It's kind of now we've learned it's all diluted, with crap, and so you don't get high. You think you're high. So the thing is that it's like it's like a placebo, and but people in New York think it was for a while thought it was the coolest thing. It was the chicest thing to be at a party with your vape pen, so. Well, I think the rules up the road there, as far as the reality of the vape industry, and with the virus coming on the heels of the vape industry should kind of almost go. I wish it would go away. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of dry vaping, never was, except for the volcano. And these little vape pens are cute, but they don't do anything. Just a whole bit. Now, the vape industry is good for patients. I understand that. For recreationally, nah, just dab.
Yeah, I agree. A dabber is a much more potent way to handle it.
Yeah, exactly, and it's strong, and it's not cut. Okay, how it's made, you never know. Listen, by adulterating marijuana, you're putting it at another level where you're not quite sure what's in it. So when it's flower, the only thing you have to worry about is that they put pesticides on, or is there mold? And obviously that's important, but for the most part, you don't buy moldy weed. It just doesn't, you'll smell it in the bag, you just won't buy it. So, usually the stuff we've gotten over the years is pretty good. So, honestly, we don't have such a problem, but if you're asking, okay, well, it's better not to smoke now, better not to vape. So it's better to have edibles. We don't have access to edibles in New York. Got to make it yourself. And then you have no idea what the dosing is.
Right. Or you just talk to somebody in California, ship you a little box.
That would be helpful. Got any?
I have to go to the shop today. My shop was delivery, and they turned to delivery, and I called them last night. Are you guys open for business again? Yeah, come on in. I want to go in because they have a better selection. Anyway, you were talking about your partner, Shirley Halperin. I want to bring her in. Shirley is the co-author. She is a writer for Variety. Cannabis is more of her hobby now. It's not her business, but she is an old friend of mine, and we're going to say hello to Shirley Halperin. Hi, Shirley. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me unmic you.
Out of nowhere. I'm so sorry, Jeff.
What happened? Sorry.
The sunlight just came out of nowhere. It wasn't here before.
I know. Do you have a little curtain or something, or no?
No, but I will. There we go.
There you go. Move over there a little.
There we go. All right. Hi.
Hi. How are you?
Good.
So
nice
how did
everyone? I want to shout out our photographer friends, Kevin Mazer, Jason Merritt. Who else is in here?
Steve Eichner. Yeah.
Fucking Steve Eichner, come on, Mazel Tov to Steve Eichner. He just got married.
Yes, he did. I saw he was the last celebrity marriage, I guess. That story ran for like 3 days in People magazine because there was nothing else going on.
Well, he's also very well connected, as you know.
Yes.
So that was a part of it, I'm sure. But yeah, so it's so nice to see all of our pals here, Kravitz.
Yes, it's nice to have you here, Shirley. Shirley, tell us how you guys connected.
Well, funny enough, it's through Fish. I think I was still with my school paper in college. Smart. And I went to interview Fish at Elektra Records in New York. And my interview slot was right after High Times. So I walk in and the place reeks, of course. There's magazines everywhere and stickers and doodads. And Steve Bloom, the music editor, you know, and I was like, oh my God, can I please intern for you? And he was like, call me on Monday. And sure enough, I did. And then here we are.
It was Mike and Fish. It was Mike and Fish, remember?
Mike and Fish?
Yeah, that was the interview. It wasn't Trey and Paige. It was just Mike and Fish.
Oh, Mike and Fish. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And, you know, Kravitz, I don't know if you know my whole Fish story, but, you know, I had followed the band and really gotten to know them and learned a lot about the music industry from them. And that was, you know, that sort of gave me an in to them very early in their career. So, you know, I had Fish stickers on my car in 1990, if you can believe it.
Wow, that's going back.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I got some cred. But loved the band, learned a ton about the music industry through them and through Bloom, who taught me a lot about music journalism. You know, High Times in the 90s was like, you know, robust. It was swimming in money. You know, circulation was very high. It was selling. And I learned a lot about magazines, print magazines, photography, all of that stuff, because I had the opportunity to intern at High Times, which eventually turned into a job as photo editor and staging all of those elaborate weed personality shoots.
Those centerfolds I used to look at.
Well, not as much, but most of the celebrity stuff for sure. You know, getting Cypress Hill or whoever to pose with weed. Ozzy posed with weed. Right. That was a really big deal. And yeah, Bloom and I worked very, very closely together. Right, Bloom?
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, Shirley didn't last very long. She's not one to be an intern. She was ready to get a job. Yeah, I'm not working for free. I want a job. I gave her one tape to transcribe. Remember what it was?
Cracker.
Right. That was it. After that, it's like, I'm not doing any of that stuff anymore. But
oh my God, it was like
we became fast friends. We had a magazine.
How long is this interview? How much do you talk?
So you guys go back a long way, and
that's where we met, you know, and we became friends ever since.
And I was literally 21 when I met Bloom. It was 1990.
We went to the Great Went together.
Yes, we've had a lot of really crazy adventures together.
And by the way, we went with Pete Shapiro.
We went to the Great Went. I saw Bloom naked when he posed for the Spencer Tunick photo. Forever scarred. We went to Amsterdam together. We've really been like all over the world. It's been kind of fun.
That's great. And so how did you split up the duties in the book on who did what?
So the book, it's funny that you mentioned in your intro, Jeff, you know, just sort of like the duh of it, like, why isn't there some sort of guide to how to do all these things?
Probably so my 16-year-old doesn't find it, is what it, that's why.
Yeah, well, that too, but it is sort of like a secret language. You know, I thought of it when I was in college. I was like, there should be a book. I'm sure it was during some one late night bong session. And I was like, there should be a book about, you know, like an encyclopedia of pot, you know, like everything you need to know about pot. And when I got a book agent a few years later, she said, what ideas do you have? And I ran through a bunch of ideas, and that was the one that she liked the least. And I told her, this is the one that's the surest way to be successful. The others were a little more niche, like one was about boy bands, one was about Graham Parsons, who I love. But I was like, no, this is the one. And it went into multiple printings, like 9 or 10 printings. So even though it's old, I mean, it's over a decade old, a lot of the advice in there still applies.
Oh, yeah.
And it's certainly a good history lesson, if nothing else.
No, I agree. I mean, I was going through it. I'm like, this is all still, I was like, well, maybe you should do a new one. And I read it, and I'm like, everything in here is relative now.
Yeah.
The only thing you'll probably update is the dabbing, and because that's the new technologies, the vaping, the dabbing. I mean, and there's a lot of new stoner movies and books and stuff like that. So I'm sure your list will be, you know.
That's what I was going to say. The freedom to express marijuana for what it is on TV and in the movies, that was something I never dreamt would have happened. I mean, didn't I have a column at High Times called the Doob Tube?
Yeah, you wrote that.
And it was like the once in a blue moon joint that slipped its way onto a Simpsons episode. That was what I would write about in the Doob Tube. And today I wouldn't even be able to keep up with it, you know, like South Park.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, like Aquafina.
What do you think, Shirley? Did you ever see this coming? This revolution, this cannabis revolution?
Not me. I've been asked so much over the years, do you think you'll see it legalized in your lifetime? And I always said no. I just never believed it. I mean, there were people who around me who were way more optimistic, but maybe it was just because I'd always been such a troublemaker for having it in my life that I couldn't see it as like a positive thing for everyone, but now that's changed, and I'm super, super happy. I can't even believe we live in this time. It just sucks that we're all stuck inside.
Well, I would say, that, as far as seeing it coming, the medical marijuana wave was the wave that opened the door. 1996, when it was legalized in California, that's where legalization really started.
Yeah. And we've been to enough normal conferences to know that there were plenty of people out there who are advocating for it very vocally, who you might dismiss as like some crunchy hippie, but they got shit done, and certainly one of the reasons why I moved to California from the East Coast was because of the marijuana scene. I mean, honestly, it was a really big reason. So poor Bloom, he's just stuck there in the dark ages. I'm always making fun of him.
And it's so true. And even worse, because of the virus, we had a chance to get marijuana legal in New York this year. And, just it's not a priority. Cuomo was even behind it, but he knows it's nothing they can really accomplish right now when they're dealing with all this.
Well, what's the status in New York?
Medical marijuana is legal. That's it. We have hemp, and CBD, everything, but we decriminalize. We have been for a long time. So, when I was younger, you couldn't get arrested for marijuana in New York. It was pretty tough. But as time went on, when Giuliani came in and Bloomberg, they started to really go after smokers. And remember Shirley on all the times on the street, and I would tell you, no, I'm not smoking, because they're arresting people left and right. And I had friends who were getting busted. And
you got arrested.
A little alcohol somewhere, and tote, but it was really a bad time. We had a really bad run of like 15 years of mass arrests in New York, but it wasn't like that when I was growing up.
It was for me. I got arrested, and you got arrested in New Jersey. We both did.
Yeah.
And then you got arrested later during one of the fish runs.
Yeah.
It was very real. I had friends who were thrown in the paddy wagon for smoking in Central Park, and kept in there all day until they were processed, 24 hours later. It was a really bad scene in New York. And I think it got a lot worse after 9/11.
Well, the last time I was arrested, I've had several marijuana arrests, but the only time in New York was before a fish show, and it was 2012. It was the New Year's run, and it was something like the 28th or something, and we were all going to the show, and I was meeting Shirley that night for dinner, and me and a friend went to a parking lot and parked, and we had puffed a little bit in the car on the way down. It wasn't crazy. And all of a sudden we were surrounded by cops when we got into that place. They were staking out the parking lot. Yeah. Unbelievable. We got that night. And, I told Jason Colton about it, and I was pretty upset. I said, you guys got to deal with this stuff. I mean, there were tons of fish heads getting arrested that night. We weren't the only ones in jail. And Colton said, we can't really do much with the New York police. They're out of our control. But he was nice. We never went to that show that night, but he gave me tickets for the next time they played SPAC.
Thank God for Colton, right, guys?
Right.
Jason Colton. I love the name checks. I'm seeing a little lag. Are you guys lagging?
You're
a little bit.
Yeah. All right.
I don't see vocals coming out, anything coming out of your mouth when you're talking.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of weird. I feel like I'm in a spaghetti western.
I was trying to see if there were any comments from our friends like Eichner, who says Amsterdam, which of course.
Are there comments?
Here we go. I'll come up from the bottom here. Let's see what we got.
You're looking for comments down below? Where are they?
And here I'm going to pop. What are a few? What was your favorite High Times covers?
Bloom, you go.
Well, I love the Cypress Hill cover because it was sort of the breakthrough. It was such a great cover the way it was done. I love the Fishbone cover. My years there, I just had so much fun with Angelo Moore. He wore a hemp outfit. He had a saxophone. We got buds to put right in the bell of that. Saxophone. The shoots with Snoop Dogg, the shoot was I always remember that one. He was at our photo shoot for 5 hours, fell asleep on the couch. It was over. I had to wake him up. The Snoop Dogg, gotta go.
And of course, I have to tell the Ozzy story because it's
right.
It's a famous High Times story. It's an urban tale, as they say, HERB. So I booked Ozzy Osbourne for the cover. It was like 1998 when they were doing a Black Sabbath reunion. It was not an easy negotiation. Sharon Osbourne, the publicist at the time, was very difficult too, and it was dealing with both those women. And one of the things that they asked for was a closed set, where we do the shoot, just the assistant, photographer, photo editor. That's it. Kravitz, you know this drill.
Yes.
And of course, word got around to everybody in the High Times office, all of whom are like giant metalheads, like can't even believe that this is going to happen. We go to this tiny studio in Midtown, not a professional place, not Smashbox, like a private little studio, Dennis Kleiman's studio. We've rented a pound of weed, which this is how we did photo shoots back then. We would rent the weed, and whatever we smoked or whatever dried up because of the lights, mostly because of the lights, that weight was subtracted from the cost, and that's what we would owe the dealer. And then we'd give him his weed back. So we had this idea to put Ozzy in a throne, and we found this bong that was in the shape of a skull, and it had a concave sort of top to it. So we thought, and by the way, you guys can Google this. Anyone can Google this. Ozzy Osbourne High Times cover. You can see this. We thought we'd bunch up a bunch of the buds on top of the skull bong and have him sitting, with like his leg up, like, and holding this skull bong. Well, him and Tony Iommi, weed was falling off the bong left and right, and they kept putting it in their pockets. And people started to tell me, they're putting them in their pockets. Next thing I know, I turn around and literally the entire editorial staff of High Times is there with their albums for them to sign and drunk as fuck. And I'm running this photo shoot. So needless to say, it turned into a bit of a debacle and a bit of a party. And then somehow, I won't reveal how, it wound up in Page 6, just as the issue was coming out, obviously planted to drum up publicity for the issue, at which point I get the angry phone call from Sharon Osbourne, and I think it was Lisa Vega at the time, where it was like, what the fuck? You called the Post, blah, blah, you said we stole this much marijuana, like just disaster from beginning to end. Go ahead, Blue.
That's very true. Years later, I saw Sharon Osbourne. She was on a panel of something, and I got to ask a question. I apologized for that. She says, "Oh, we never cared. That was okay." She didn't care. We thought, because we thought they hate us. We couldn't go to Ozfest anymore. The funny thing was, I remember when I got in there a little late because Shirley was preparing and everything set up, and I show up, and the High Times people are at the door. One again, we can't let them in, right? and I go in. You go in. And we can't. Yeah, well, I'm the music editor, so I go in. Ozzy's got the bag, this big bag, and he's rolling around. Hey, look at my bag! Look at my bag! Look at my bag! He's like a little kid with like a pound of weed. It was the funniest thing. I did not know they were pilfering though until I read the story.
Dude, their pockets were like bulging with buds. When
here's the story, because they went down to Electric Lady after that. I heard this story, and they went to the studio, Electric Lady, and they had all these buds, which basically proved the point that they did steal a lot. But so what? That was the beauty of those. I mean, at the Snoop Dogg shoot, okay, we would give him, here's a nice bud like this. Here, take it with you. And he goes, that's all? And it was a negotiation for him to buy the whole bag. The next day, he came up to High Times office after that photo shoot and needed more.
Man, we had some good times, you guys.
And Snoop Dogg sat in my chair in my office, a line down the hallway to go in there and get autographs as he signed to everybody. It was a blast. I mean, Snoop Dogg was a lot friendlier then. He kind of keeps his distance these days, but he was a lot friendlier then.
Well, the weed in the mid 90s to the late 90s made a huge leap. I mean, the stuff that you were in the late 90s, you had the Chem Dog coming out, the Skunk #1, the Sour Diesel. These were all strains that had kind of been dormant.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, pot changed, basically.
Well, a lot of it, I think, was Amsterdam and Seeds coming over here. We started going over there, the High Times crew, and then, of course, a lot of other, people would go to Amsterdam because they wanted to experience, legal marijuana, go to the coffee shops, bring home some seeds. So I think a lot of that really came from Amsterdam.
And also the medicinal use, like as people refined their growing, that made it around to other markets. But New York, I've always found, is one of the last to get the good stuff. Like, it's just so unfortunate. I know you think we'll always have the public library, but
it's not quite up to your standards. But understandably, by the time we get it, because it's black market, it's gone through so many hands. It's not where it should be. It's not a beautiful green color anymore. It's deteriorates. So that's the problem with the black market. It goes through too many hands. Everybody's making a buck.
Sure.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But in the old days, we used to have to contend with seeds and stems. And I remember the first bag of Sensimilia I ever saw. I thought the weed was broken. I'm like, look, it's green and there's no seeds. What happened?
That was the 80s.
Sure.
Sensimilia came in. I remember in New York when you were buying pot on the streets back in those days. It was skunk, and it was a new thing. Oh, skunk. The Jamaican guys were selling skunk. But it changed. I mean, back in the day before then, yeah, seeds and stems. The famous thing was, you would throw it into a box or whatever, and you tray it. You'd kind of filter it, and you kind of get the seeds to come down and get rid of the stems, and then you'd have your joint. And I remember I had a friend a good friend who might be following this right now, and we would, he'd have a box that he used, and it looked like there was nothing in there but seeds and stems, and he'd say, "Make us a joint," and he would keep doing it until he got something out of what was left, But everything was so cheap back then too. We lose our host.
Oh, Kravitz? Are you there?
It's just us. We're taking over the show.
Hold on, here we go.
There he is.
My computer blew up. I never saw anything like it.
What?
I was on it, and all of a sudden the whole thing went black, and I'm like, wait, what happened? What the hell?
Well, I'm seeing comments that you were lagging, but Bloom and I are okay. So
No, and now it seems a lot better.
okay.
So there it is. I blacked out.
We were about to take over the show.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that.
We have this whole thing figured out.
Yeah, it's not too bad. But okay, let's go in here and check out some of these. Wine Stock, the Steve Bloom Show.
Hey, Jason.
Kind of perfect.
Whatever that is.
Kind of perfect. My friend Phaedra wants to know, what's your preference here, indica, sativa, or hybrid?
Cheryl?
Well, I'm sativa exclusively and kind of always have been.
I'm the other way around. I'm indica, but these days I don't really believe in those terminologies. Everything's hybrid, and you should really focus on the cannabinoids and terpenes.
Yeah, I think it ultimately is. I go through the sativas in the morning, and then I switch in the afternoon to the hybrids, and then I do the hybrid heavy indicas at night.
That's very smart.
Yeah, because if I smoked that sativa at night, I'd be a mess.
Yeah, it keeps you wired. But I have a very demanding job, and I'm up very late, and sometimes it helps with that last bit of fuel.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
at night I have no energy. Here's some of our friends saying hi, Lori Earl.
Oh, I love Lori Earl. She's my stoner buddy.
These are all of these
stoner buddies.
used to work with. Steph checking in. Good stuff in Hawaii. You're in Hawaii. Mm-hmm. Oh, the good stuff in Hawaii. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I was in Hawaii a few years. I was in Kauai. Pretty good weed there. It wasn't like,
you know what?
You really had to look hard to find.
Yes, I think that the one. Same thing with Jamaica. I went to Jamaica. It was such swag down there. I was like, I couldn't even smoke it.
Oh God, awful in Jamaica.
And Hawaii, I never found that really good bud in Hawaii. It was always so elusive because the locals keep it all for themselves and they sell the shit to the tourists. So.
Well, Jamaica, you just have to smoke a lot. That's all. They just go through so much. They're rolling all the time. 10 joints a day easily.
Yeah. The way to do it is to fly in private to the brand new Ian Fleming Airport. That's the way to bring the weed in. Probably should not be saying that.
I would just throw it in my shoe. Here's Stevie here.
Stonehenge.
Like this here.
Famous High Times cover from like 1994, 95, I want to say.
Imagine, it's like a Stonehenge like design, of buds. That was, I think, probably a Frank Max design with Zeichner. I would think. Dave
Kane, Amsterdamski.
We had great times in Amsterdam. Went to many a Cannabis Cup. Cannabis Cup was a real Cannabis Cup where people could really go around and make their own choices.
Yeah, I went in the '90s, like at I think '99 or something, to Amsterdam, and went during Cannabis Cup and got the little passport and went to all the shops. And basically, it was a way to stimulate the economy, the cannabis economy in Amsterdam, because everybody had to go to these shops to try the strains. All the tourists, and they'd be buying out all the bud.
Exactly.
Oh, they brag like crazy. You know, Barney's and the Greenhouse, they were fighting every year to win that cup.
Yeah,
they meet you at the airport and start giving you stuff. I mean, they take you on buses everywhere. They really schmoozed the judges to get them to win. They knew how important it was. And then the Greenhouse would have 25 cups, in their store, and then they get all the celebrities that come visit.
Yeah, I was in the Greenhouse once, and I sat down with Arjan and talked to him about cannabis. And one of the things he said, one of the reasons he got involved with it, he goes, when he first got involved with it, most of the smoking is in Holland was hash. So not a lot of people were into the greens like that. And then he started really working on the greens to make them as good as possible. And that's how come he excelled. He always had some great.
Well, that's very true. When I first went to Europe in the 80s, I mean, there was no pot there. It was all hash. And I brought joints. They wanted my joints, and I wanted their hash.
Right. It was completely. Chris Collins asked, do you know who Dr. McDope is?
Yeah, it comes a little bit earlier in my time, but I remember there was like a Dope Rider or Dr. McDope, or I'm trying to remember. It was a cartoon?
I think it was a cartoon based on his
stepfather. I was very big on cartoons in the 70s. I mean, the Fabulous Freak Brothers, they had such great cartoonists then. But that was one. There was a Dope Rider was a famous one. A few others, but I'm not sure McDope. Doesn't really ring a bell.
And you guys had the famous Ask Ed, which I always loved reading.
Well, Ed Rosenthal, the legendary guru of ganja. Ed Rosenthal. A lot of great of those people. I mean, there was like Rosenthal did it for years. He wrote that column, and then Jorge Cervantes took over when Ed was kind of moved on to other stuff, and then Danny Danko.
Yep.
And Kyle Cushman.
So the book before Pot Culture was the book that everybody needed to have. Was Jack Herrera's famous Emperor Wears No Clothes.
Right.
And that is such an amazing read because he really breaks down the marijuana prohibition and how it all started and how important it was before it all started and stuff like that. And that book had been out of print for decades.
Well, not really. He wrote it in 1985, and actually has multiple printings even to this day. But a lot of people wrote it with Jack Herer, but Jack was the guy. I mean, there's so many people out there claim that they either wrote or edited that book with Jack, because there were dozens or something. It's kind of a scrapbook about marijuana, marijuana history. He just dug all this evidence going back, to the turn of the century, the early 20s, all the Reefer Madness stuff. He dug up a lot of stuff. His biggest claim to fame besides the book was finding the short movie called Hemp for Victory. He found that movie, that little 10-minute movie from the 40s that encouraged farmers to grow hemp for the war effort. While marijuana was still illegal, yet they needed hemp for rope and sails and things like that. And he dug that up in the Library of Congress. Nobody knew it existed. So that was a really claim to fame for him. That really opened the door to understand, what was really going on here. That we'll make hemp legal when we need it. But otherwise, it's illegal. You can go to jail.
Right. Yeah, well, for years, when we were talking yesterday to Mark Sheldon, he was talking about how that it's just the past 100 years that pot's been on prohibition, but it's really been accepted for thousands of years before that and up until the last 100 years where we were kind of turned on.
It was that well known. I mean, actually, before it was made illegal, there was some medical preparations. You've seen those little bottles and stuff like that from maybe the late 1800s and stuff, but there really wasn't that much usage of marijuana up until it came into the country via Mexico, and then the scares started to happen, the Reefer Madness stuff, because Mexicans, and then it kind of made its way to New Orleans. All the jazz musicians dug it, and all the black and brown people are going to terrorize the white people, and it became this whole ridiculous Reefer Madness.
Yeah, so I started watching Narcos season 3, and I was really surprised that the whole thing centers around the herb industry in Mexico. I don't know, have you watched it yet?
I love Narcos. It's actually into season 4 now, and that's the cocaine years. But season 3 was really good. I mean, I think the first 2 seasons, the Escobar years, were better. But I know people have kind of lost interest. But it's very cinematic and beautifully written and filmed. It's just this year is very, very violent. It's really a mob story.
Oh, well, the cocaine years got really violent. I mean,
everybody's killing each other left and right. I mean, it's just like watching The Godfather or something.
Yeah, that's the scourge of drugs right there. The stuff that feeds on the underbelly, You know, pot has always been an open, something that kind of opens you up and shares love, and cocaine's always been on that side that is kind of a little bit darker. So it's always something. What do you got coming up next, Steve?
I'm working on a live cast for 420. I'm working with Debbie Goldsberry, and I just signed up Tommy Chong and Be Real. I'm going to do some interviews that day to help them out. They're raising some money, and 420, we usually is awesome and large, and this year everybody's going to be home. So I'm actually putting together a calendar right now, 420 virtual events. It's a bunch, but looks like a couple of good ones. With some good. I saw Melissa Etheridge's on a bill, and it's a bunch of cool people jumping on these bills. It's all very last minute because everybody's. They just started organizing this 420 event I'm working on just 2 days ago, practically. So yeah. Everybody's rushing to put it together.
Yeah, everything's doing it, and we've been doing it all week here, and I'm still trying to piece together my 420 show. Well, Steve, I'm going to talk to Shirley for a little bit. I appreciate your input. It was great catching up with you. Keep up the good work. You're fighting the force of evil and promoting the good in the world through cannabis love and use, and I love it.
Thanks for having me. Nice seeing you, Cheryl.
Bye, Bloomy.
All right.
Thanks. Stay healthy.
Yeah, I'm going to go watch the fish show now.
There you go. Thanks. Yeah, there's my competition for today. I can see my viewers drop off. All my fans are sitting home watching fish right now. That's what it is, That's
I know. I would be watching it too.
Oh, you're going to get into it. Trust me, the best part's coming up. It's set 2 at the end.
Oh, okay. Should we take bets on what the set 2 opener will be?
Yes. So how's things in Hollywood, Shirley? Shirley works for Variety, and we're going through a really interesting time in our city because our whole industry's closed. Nobody's making new content. We're sucking down to Netflix like it's going. My friend said I finished Netflix.
That's hilarious. Let's see. It depends on which sector of the entertainment industry. Obviously, touring is probably the most vulnerable right now. You guys have talked about this here. You heard from Brad, from Dan, no one really knows what's up. No one really knows when concerts will come back, when people will feel comfortable, or when there won't be that sort of coronavirus residuals that keep people away from gathering. It's a giant question mark. So that's happening in the touring industry. In the movie industry, you're dealing with theater closures and chains, long-standing chains that can no longer afford to be in business. You're talking about pushing releases back that have tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars tied up in them. You're talking about theme parks. It's also incredibly grim. The streamers are a bit of the sort of highlight because there is a lot of content that still needs to make its way through the cycle. And it's certainly good for the music for screens scene, which I cover. And that's, every time there's a show, there's a movie, there's something, they need music. So that's good for recorded music, for publishing, for people who have songwriting stakes or master stakes in their music. So music is not an entirely bleak picture, but, television, they can't shoot new seasons. Everybody's quarantined at home. People are going to get real sick of acoustic sessions from people's living rooms pretty soon. And, things are going to have to change to a more, whatever society we're going to evolve into.
Well, we're gonna find a new happy balance. I will say that after the past month, I have, I find myself a lot more accepting of what's going on and just a lot more relaxed. I'm not, there's nothing I can really do about it, and I don't know what's going to happen in my life work-wise as far as photography goes. So
we're thinking about that too. We can't. It's very hard for us to plan covers. We can't do shoots. Or we can't do them in the traditional way. We definitely have to think of different options. I'm so sorry about the sunlight. There's just nothing I can do about it. It's incredibly challenging. We're just trying to be creative and think of other things that we can do, which I think we're very good at Variety. Especially in emergency situations like this, where we can really sort of bring the staff together and come up with ways to look at the industry and bring insight, to it and some sort of semblance of this is the way it's going to go. But the music, the live music situation is a real bummer. Jeff, I think the last time we saw each other was at Tame Impala at the Forum. And I remember how crazy that was. And we were like, oh, no sharing joints. We had to like keep reminding ourselves.
I know. And the funny thing was, Jules didn't want to go. My wife didn't want to go. And my son wanted to go. And I was like, you know what? This could be the last concert for a long time. I wasn't thinking years. I was thinking a couple weeks. I was considered a long time.
That's exactly right. I had the same conversation with my husband, and he was freaked out about going. I mean, in retrospect, I mean, you know, knock on wood, we're all lucky and we got through it. But like, it was, you know, it's just such a bummer. It really, really is. And, you know, as someone who came up through the Phish scene and through the Grateful Dead scene, like I've been going back to that music, you know, especially the Dead. Just to feel that sort of comfort of like having a community and, you know, feeling connected to people in other places. So
yeah, well, it's all about house party and Zoom and you know, taking everybody's hanging out together in the unreal world. Exactly.
But I want to tell you that I know what time it is just by hearing your voice pop up on my computer. I'll be like, oh, it's almost 4:20. You know, thank you for being my alarm clock every day.
Yeah, it's been an interesting month. I really, you know, it's nothing I really ever wished on myself. I don't think I ever wanted to go and follow my dad's footsteps because, you know, naturally, I think the thing you fear most is becoming your parents.
He'd be so proud. Come on.
Yeah. Oh, he would be losing his shit. And, you know, I am too. I mean, it makes me so happy. And I leave the shows feeling so buzzed. And it's just so incredible to connect with everybody. And I really feel like the past month has been a whole eye-opening experience for me. I know a lot of people are floundering trying to figure out what to do, but I really think I've locked on to something that could feed the family come in the next couple months.
I love that. We're super grateful, Jeff. Like, it really has been. It's sort of like Howard Stern. It's like, you know, we need someone to talk to us, you know, someone that we feel like we know really well. And I don't know, it's just been great.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you tuning in. I love your love. We're good old friends. We've been friends for a long time.
Oh, we have so much fun.
It was Shirley and I were always sneaking off to go have a smoke. And that was way before it was acceptable around town.
So true. But I have to also give you a shout out to Brad because I don't know if he remembers this. Remember, I go way back in the early Phish days. But he was the one who plucked me out of a crowd and brought me and my baby brother backstage to meet the band, which basically launched my career. So
yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Phish has touched a lot of lives out there, and music has. I mean, the whole music community is just something else. It's like something we all share and we all understand, and it's always great to see your friends there when you go to places like the Forum and everybody's hanging out, and it's probably like hearing they sold it and all that. It's just like I have so many mixed emotions, and now it's not open at all. We don't even have it. So it's an uncomfortable time, but at least we have each other to comfort each other through this time and to take us through it and to keep each other distracted. I love you, Shirley. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Love you, Kravitz.
I look forward to finally being able to pass you a doobie.
Can't wait to party at your house once again.
I'm trying to do it sooner than later. Wife's like, no.
Please, we need you.
All right, I love you. Talk to you soon. Thanks, Shirley. Shirley Halperin, Steve Bloom, the authors of this fine book, and you can still get it. Pop culture is still out there. And you know what? Incredibly relevant, incredibly interesting. Everything from music to smoke to. What isn't music to smoke to? It's all music to smoke to. You know, friends, we're in a hard place, and we're all in it together. We're all sharing this together. It's very unique that everybody around the world is all in kind of the same situation. Yeah, I know things are starting to open in China, but we don't live in China. Things are starting to open in Spain. We don't live in Spain. We live in America. The idiots are in control of the asylum. We just have to take it as it comes. Try not to tune in. Shut off the news. Do not watch those press conferences. There's nothing good there. If anything has to come to you, the news will get to you the way it needs to get to you. But filling your head with all this stuff is just going to make you more depressed, and you're not going to be able to pull yourself out of the funk. So tune out. Tune in here every day, 4:10 p.m. Tomorrow, who's my guest? Good question. I'll let you know tomorrow when I make the announcement out there. But it's going to be cannabis themed, and I've been talking to some great guests. So I'm just trying to line everybody up and schedule them the next 5 days so we come out of this on the whole thing. If you haven't seen today on my Instagram, if you follow me on Instagram at Jeff Kravitz, we're giving away one of those beautiful, beautiful pieces that I've been showing on there from my friends at Hetty Old School Glass. And I'm kind of losing my marbles. I have a solo pipe around here somewhere. My show just went bonkers on me today. Twice that happened where I totally lost the feed. And fortunately, those guys were still on carrying on, and I was able to come back in. Anyway, check out all Hetty Old School Glass. My friends, my guests today are going to get a solo pipe. So I need Steve and Shirley to send me their addresses so I can send them a solo pipe. And I'm going to give one out to one of you random folks I'm going to contact here who tuned in today on my comments. Thank you. I'm going to go watch Fish, see my fam, and have some din. See you tomorrow, 4:10, 4:20. Stay safe. Take care of each other. Do something special for someone you love. Here's the hug. Can't wait to give you all one in person. Take care. Have a great day. See you soon. Bye.